What's up, internet? Today I'm gonna show you how I made my Doom instrument inspired by Mick Gordon. So hear what it sounds like. Recently, I was looking at the video from Mick Gordon at GDC where he explains how he made the Doom soundtrack, and I thought it was pretty cool, so I wanted to give it a shot myself and have like a custom patch that I can use in different projects and different songs. And then I face a little problem because Mick is actually using analog gear. So I had to think a little bit through how I could do that all in the box because that was my goal. In his speech, Mick Gordon shows this graph. So basically what he did is that he sent a sine wave and he split the signal into 4 different tracks. Then all those different tracks were processed differently, as you can see. So the pedal right here are some distortion types. He sent it through a tape echo, some more distortion, some reverb. He sent it also through an amp. He mic'd the amp, and then he was sending the feedback of like the mic in front of the guitar amp back into itself. He basically created a feedback and recorded that. He also did something really interesting with those splitter here and the compressor. The more volume the CPU was sending through those different tracks, it would trigger some different effects. So I'm going to show you in this project. But if you want to try it out, I really recommend you just take a screenshot from this. So let me show you how I made this patch. First, what I did is that I created a serum patch. I assigned this velocity to this level. And I also mapped this LFO right here to the pitch envelope. That way, I'm getting a little bit of a punch at the beginning of the sound. Let me show you how it sounds like without the effect. You may need some speakers or headphones to hear that. Okay. And in the patch, as you can see, I created a cool bass groove, but I also automated the velocity. So I'm going to show you what's the purpose of this. Once you got that, right here, I create 4 different tracks. And all of those are receiving audio from this audio source channel. So as you can hear, if I mute this, this is the signal from the MIDI input. And it's the same for all those paths. So once again, I'm referring to this graph. Okay. So right now, our sine wave is right here, right? For the 4 different channel. Once your signal is split just like this, I thought of this patch in a very specific way. And what I mean by that is that I wanted that my sine wave would be less distorted in the path 1. And then when the velocity hits harder, it goes into path 2, but it's going to be more aggressive. So to achieve a kind of soft but distorted sine wave, what I did is that I started to apply some distortion, just like Mick Gordon did. So I first started with a tube saturation. And then I added more. And more. And also something that I did with all those modules is that I actually map the different drive knob of each of those plugins to macros. This way I can really modulate and shape the sound the way I want for a specific track. Let me just mute this for now. So by playing with this, I can get a more or less distorted sound. So that's how I like it that way. Then what I did is that I mute this one and I went to the other one. So the pad 2. Let's mute this. I first started with a gate. So that way, only the loudest signal would go through and get affected by this chain. Next, what I did, I added another distortion. Let me just mute this and this. Okay. So I had this. Cool. Next, what I did is that I created different chain with different distortion plugins. So as you can see, I use some guitar amps, some Saturn. I really try some different like preset and settings and all that. And I only kept my favorite. But I wanted that the distortion would change over time and randomly, so it can create some more interesting bass line and groove. So to do that, all you have to do is create a chain, and usually everything is gonna come like this, right? So all you have to do is click here and click on distribute range equally, and boom, everything is split up right now. Next, you have to have a Max for Live plugin to use that, but you take this LFO and I put this one on random. Once the random setting is choose, all you have to do is click here and assign it to this little bar right here. Once you've done that, you'll see that this little bar will follow this LFO and you can change the rate right here. All right. So let's see what we have. I also assigned this rate right here. So if I have, for example, a faster groove, well, I can change it like right over here. Let's put like a 1/2 for now. Next, I did kind of the same thing, but with some effects. Well, it's mostly phasers, but yeah, it's almost only phasers. So it's gonna trigger with this LFO, same thing. And this is all to add movement to like the heavier tone of the bass line. Next, I just have this utility if I want to control the gain. And that's about it for this channel strip. If we go back into the one, what we want to do now is assign, you can put a gate or a compressor, but basically you just want that this sound goes off when this one comes up. So I assigned this audio from a pad 2. So every time the pad 2 is going to play, this one is going to be muted. So let's see what it sounds like right now. Okay, cool. Next, if we refer to that picture, Mick Gordon was sending the sine wave through a tape echo, another distortion pedal, the Akai, I forgot what was his purpose, and a spring reverb. I'm not sure if he was using those as like another layer for his bass, or it was more like an effect, but I decided to use mine as like the return track. With that in mind, let's check what I did. So kind of the same principle as the pad 2, I put a gate at the front, so it only gets triggered when the loudest sine wave are going through. You can see right here. Next, I did kind of the same thing with the distortion. Let me just mute the rest of the chain for now. So here I apply 3 different type of distortion with trash, and I modulate the selection of the source with this LFO. Next, I applied a delay, 100% wet. I also applied this tape saturation, some EQ. Finally, what I did is that I compressed the signal of this pad 3 whenever the pad 1 or pad 2 is playing. Finally, this pad 4 is really interesting. If we refer to the picture once again, he was sending the sine wave through an amp and then mic it, send the mic signal back into the amp, and he was sending the signal into his computer. So I can show it right now because I'm using this multi-output device to record this video. But basically, all you have to do is choose your sound card. And then what you do is that in Ableton, at least, right here, we can see that it says Q out in this window when I highlight this 1-2 channel strip. So you click here and you say 3-4. Right here in Ableton, I send the pad 4 in a return track. I also assign the pad 4 to sends only, okay? Then on the return track, I click on external out and assign it to 3-4. So this way the sound will only comes out from my headphone jack. So let me show you right here. This is my output for headphones usually, but right now I plug a guitar cable and I'm sending it in my amp right here. Okay, so this way when I'm clicking on play, and I'm turning up the output of the phones, also what you can do is play around with the different settings of the amp itself. And then what I did is that I put this mic in front of the amp. This mic is also going inside the sound card, and I was recording it in this channel right here. So this is just your typical, line in with a mic, whatever you're using, and then you record it, and you can use that as like a texture or some sound effects or fillers in between your bass line and everything. I can show you an example of what the amp sounded like with my line 6 right here. I also map all of those knobs I was showing to you right here to my MIDI controller, Tractor S4. Once I got that, I sent those two different channels into a bus right here. This bus has a couple effects that I didn't want that the path 3 would be affected by. So the first one is serum effects. Let me just mute those. So this is the sound we had before, and this is with the serum effect. What I did here is that I mapped different macro to different parameter. Correct me on that. Sorry.
Parameter.
So the first one is a hyperdimension. This is without, and this is with. So it really depends what are you going for. Then I added more distortion. It's only a tube distortion, but it helps get the sound a little bit fatter. And finally, I put a filter. So for this filter, I apply some different effect. This is a MG low 12, so it's just a low pass basically. But first, I apply the macro to the mix knob. So if I want to remove the filter, I can just do this. Or put it back in. I also applied some velocity to the cutoff. And I applied this envelope to the cutoff. So the harder I'm gonna press the keys, the more the cutoff will open. I also applied this macro here. It's not the size, but to the sustain. So I can, by opening this, I can open up the filter a little bit more. It's in a more subtle way. To trigger that serum effects, what I did is that I created another MIDI channel and I dragged external instrument and I send it to the correct channel. And all you have to do is assign it to serum effects. Then what I did is that I copied the same MIDI from the sine wave to this new MIDI track and just duplicate it. Once I got that, I wanted to create a beat repeat like the DJ console have. So we can hear it right here. If I do it in a more drastic way. So it was just to create some movement to the sound. Finally, I added a phaser. And this is just for FX purpose. Cool. Then, as you can see, I send it through a return channel. So this is the main one right here. And I also sent this path 3 channel to the main right here. So what I did first is that I just applied a small ambience reverb. Just so the bass, all the different sound feels in the same room. So this is very subtle. Next, I had some fun with the low pass, a high pass, and a big crusher. I can show you the automation. Oh. This is the low pass, high pass, and crush. And this is what really gives the sound the talking movement. Cool. Then I applied some OTT. This one is controlled by my MIDI controller, so it doesn't do anything right now. I have a reverb also, which is only at the end of each phrase. This one is also for my MIDI controller, so don't mind that. At the end, I only applied an EQ just to shape the sound the way I wanted. A de-esser, because there was some harsh frequencies. And I squashed the sound pretty much. Finally, I applied this LFO, which is following with the drum. So altogether, it sounds like this. To create this Doom instrument, I honestly look up to a lot of like Reddit page and different video online, and there was not a lot of information about this instrument. And also a lot of people had also a lot of different opinions to how to process and approach the sound. So let me just hear your thoughts. If you've learned anything, if you would have done something differently, I'm really interested to hear you guys about that. So I hope you've learned something, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.